I'm knackered this week, but guess who's not? That's right, it's Unitree, who have just unveiled a 500kg mad mech called the GD01, getting us one step closer to making Pacific Rim a reality. It's roughly 12-foot robot that you can sit aside, and it starts at around $650,000, so about the same price as a supercar, though admittedly a little harder to sell to the wife. Unitree is calling this a civilian vehicle, so it may be a tax write-off for you. Though their own safety guidelines reportedly include telling people not to actually weaponize it, always comforting when your product needs this type of disclaimer. And like most civilian vehicles, it can knock down cement walls before, going on all fours and running away from the crime scene. Now, to be fair, nobody really knows if this is actually production ready. Some reports question whether the pilot in the demo was even real, and I'll leave that completely up to yourself to decide. And there are still massive questions around battery life, regulations, and the overall practicality of a robot like this. So this thing becoming your daily commute isn't probably going to happen, especially if it needs 6 hours to recharge after only working for 10 minutes. Wait, is this robot me? But possibly the most important story might be from Figure. Go figure. It has shown that a humanoid robot completing a full 8-hour shift. Wait, no, 24 hours. Wait, no, it's actually not stopping. In fact, it's live streaming right now, competing against a real human. The Helix O2 robot is apparently performing at human performance levels, fully autonomously. I mean, go watch it for yourself if you don't believe me, or don't if you actually value your time, proving that robots may be approaching a point where they can actually take over warehouse labor. And you all thought that it was just white-collar jobs at risk. While this might just be a cool tech demo, each year it's getting eerily close to becoming a reality by the looks of it. Guess there goes my dream of working in an Amazon warehouse. According to Google's threat intelligence team, they've spotted what they believe is the first AI-developed zero-day exploit that they've identified in the wild. Wow, that's wild. The target was a two-factor authentication bypass, like the one you have set up for your bank account so the bank knows it's actually you. But thankfully, Google says it blocked it before it spread more widely. Good job, Google, good job. I think that deserves a pat on the back. Apparently they knew this exploit was AI developed due to it having extremely LLM coded fingerprints. Well, not those kind of fingerprints. More like the exploit included things like educational comments and even a completely hallucinated CVSS vulnerability score. Oh yes, CVSS score. Damn, it was high up. Oh no, which one's better again? It appears this malware didn't just like to break into your computer, it also wanted to explain how it did it. Google also clarified they didn't believe Gemini was used at all. Google's PR team hard at work making sure that everyone knows that Google only plays defense. Google also says state-linked groups from China and North Korea are using AI for reconnaissance, vulnerability research, and exploit workflows. Basically all the boring and repetitive parts of hacking, which unfortunately are the parts that scale really well. And to make sure that everyone sleeps a little worse, Google has highlighted Android malware that could apparently see what's on your screen, then using AI, it could perform actions automatically. So malware can now navigate Google settings better than my dad. Cool. And in even more Google news, they've decided that Android is no longer just an operating system. It is now, according to Google, an intelligence system. Sounds impressive, though I'm slightly worried it might start questioning why I've opened delivery for the third time today. Don't judge me, Google, you know I'm always hungry. The idea is Gemini stops being a chatbot you just open and becomes a thing baked into your phone, laptop, watch, car, glasses, and presumably your pacemaker once Google finds a way to monetize that. Oh, looks like your heart rate's going up. Would you like me to diagnose that for you? One of the headline stories of the event was Google Book, a AI-first laptop category coming this autumn. It's basically Chromebook's cooler cousin who studied AI abroad and came back saying, I'm actually so different now. Offering cool features like the magic pointer where it can understand what your cursor is pointing at. Google says that you can just wiggle your cursor over something to trigger helpful actions. Kind of like right-clicking. Gemini is also replacing Google Assistant in cars, which will hopefully make using voice assistants slightly more useful. You can ask it about traffic, restaurants, and apparently what a button in your car actually does, just by describing it. Finally, a useful upgrade. Thank you, Google. And finally, there's Pause Point, where Android interrupts you after 45 minutes of doom scrolling with a 10-second timeout asking essentially, hey, what are you doing with your life? I don't know, Google, mate, I don't know. What you tell me? Software developers are now saying that AI is rotting their brains, which is deeply unfair because that was clearly TikTok's job. According to 404 Media, while executives are proudly waving around numbers like they found the cheat code to capitalism, developers are actually using these tools are having a slightly different experience. Google says 75% of new AI code is AI generated. Microsoft is around their 30% today, with the CTO predicting they'll jump to 95% by 2030. Anthropic also says 90% of its code is written by AI. All this sounds pretty amazing, right? Well, that is until you ask the people who have to maintain it all. Developers say they're being told to use AI whether they like it or not, and instead of feeling supercharged, many feel like overworked proofreaders. The code generates faster, sure, but it can also be flawed, weird, and occasionally held together by vibes and a suspicious amount of optimism. One UX designer said companies are building a rat's nest of technical debt. They'll be impossible to untangle once these models become expensive. Any minute now. And that's the real point. The productivity dividend hasn't become shorter work weeks or better products. It became layoffs and more output pressure, and executives are saying, look how much code the robot actually wrote. Turns out outsourcing typing is relatively easy, but outsourcing understanding, slightly harder. Microsoft is apparently preparing for life after OpenAI, which is a bit like hearing your spouse to start going to the gym, updating their wardrobe, and casually downloading Tinder, just to network. Reuters reports Microsoft is now shopping around for AI startups and talent as the OpenAI relationship gets complicated. Which makes sense, they've poured already $13 billion into OpenAI and reportedly spent over $100 billion on AI infrastructure tied to this whole arrangement. At this point, Microsoft, I'm just going to be honest here, doesn't sound like you have a partnership, it sounds like you have a shared custody of a few data centers. This is all to do with the exclusivity or lack thereof between OpenAI and Microsoft, where OpenAI can now work freely with Amazon and Google Cloud. Microsoft also reportedly considered buying Cursor, the AI coding startup everyone suddenly wants, before backing away because regulators may have noticed that Microsoft already owns GitHub Copilot, which may come up as a little bit monopolish. They're also talking with startups like Inception, working on diffusion-based language models, where text generation works like AI image generation, appearing all at once. Still though, strategically, this is probably a positive move for Microsoft as they move away from being that company that rented Sam Altman forever. That's it for this week. Might be a little bit of a delay for my next few ones, but I'll see you when I see you.